Cecilia and Barbara, that was Barbara Gelman. I like Barbara Gelman, but when Cablevision had done such a bad job running the company, and lost all that money, they had to fire Barbara Gelman. I wish they would fire Christine Savarino. Cecilia and Barbara had a party for Peekskill signers, and Lindy came. And Glendora was not invited. It's only my show. I wasn't invited. And nobody can beat Dolan Cablevision for dehumanization. Nobody. And Tata. Look what they did to ECOC. Okay, so here's many, many, many pages of logs, as I just read to you. And that takes us up to, here is the Cablevision list of public access producers in the Peekskill system. Another thing that I didn't mention in here, but another thing that Peekskill does illegally is they charge people for editing. Public access editing is supposed to be at the cable operator's expense. See Goldberg versus Cablevision in the Second Circuit. Here is Multnomah or Multnomah or whatever. Public access in Portland, Oregon. They send you a letter, and they send you your schedule. Now, isn't that nice? Cablevision would never do anything like that. That's too amiable. That's too much an amenity. Go up to page 69. Next section is the New York Law Journal. Did a front page story on the case when pro se Glendora beat Park Avenue lawyer Kelly. They had Glendora's picture in the article on the front page, and it is deep in the 25,000 pages that Glendora has on Dolan Cablevision, and it would take a day or two to disinter it, and I'm just not going to do it. Cablevision was so anxious to win this case, Glendora versus Cablevision, when they took it off in Nassau County. They were so anxious to win it that they hired Mark Fowler, and Mark Fowler is a former commissioner of the Federal Communications Commission, but he lost to Glendora. He was standing there doing his oral argument. I was standing there doing my oral argument, and the judges were Minor and Van Graeflin and what's his name? Is it Mahoney from Brooklyn? Anyway, the former chairman of the Federal Communications Commission lost to Glendora. Well, here's the article that was in the New York Times when Glendora beat Cablevision, and they put the program back on the TV. That was a nice camera. It was a Canon. That was nice. They don't make camcorders like well as they used to. It was featured in the Westchester Law Journal. Glendora returns to Long Island Cable after Judge Silverman rules in her favor. This was a big page story in Newsday, Long Island. Gadfly swats cable giant. Glendora fights Cablevision. Multi-channel news. Cablevision loses first round in access law test. Well, they lost all the rounds. Cablevision. A chat with Glendora is back on TV. I'm wobbling about Norwalk, Connecticut. But I have a man there who said he would sign in Fairfield County. He owns the New England limousine service of Fairfield. Here's a note to Glendora, from Glendora. Glendora, when you go to Garrison to go to the town court, you can go to Peekskill and find signers there. Well, I did. Oh, boy. I'm home near midnight. Traveled 240 miles. Spent hours and hours getting the signers. Now here's some of my other signers just to show you the court that it's no big deal signing. Nothing ever comes of it. It's a meaningless thing anyhow. It has no statutory basis, folks. There's no statute ever written by the New York State Legislature or by the Congress of the United States nor by the municipalities to support what they do. They just try to bully you out of public access. The Cablevision papers are toothless. There's no statutory authority. They are unconscionable. They are no signed papers by two partners. That is, it's not a contract. Cablevision doesn't sign it and send it back to the signer with an affidavit of service. ECOC overreacted. She was pressured out by Cecilia's extortion. And here are my sweet, sweet signers. Zeke Hunter in Cross River. George Paris in New Rochelle. Pelham. Hi, George. Oh, good old sweet pie. Mary Ramage signs for the Yorktown system. Taylor Holbrook, the Reverend Taylor Holbrook, signs for Wappingers. These are some of the dearest friends that Franklin and I ever have. Robert Angel for Ossining. There's just a few of them. Mary Ramage and I had such a good time when we went to Phillipstown Court for the hearing. Here are the logs that started with Garrison and ECOC. And it started on in May, around about the 21st of May. And many pages of those logs. I'll just show you one page. They're quite detailed. Keeping a log's very, very important. There's the number of the session, the date, and what was done, and how long it took. So this goes on for 16 pages. Now, page 95, page 97, page 99, 101. And Glendora memorializes what happened in court on October the 18th, last week, Monday, from 49 p.m. to 5:09 p.m. Glendora was there, McQuaid was there, and Mary Ramage was there, and Toman was the judge. And when Toman called the case, Glendora versus ECOC, Glendora stood and said, "Ready." And Glendora should have said, "Plaintiff, ready." And then McQuaid stood up and mumbled something about defendant. And then McQuaid went, "Who is it? Who?" Hold on, folks. It's somebody at the door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Now, this is a lunar eclipse. And what does that mean? That
Earth is between the sun and the moon.
Oh, okay. And has the eclipse started?
Yes, but unfortunately the clouds are between the Earth and the moon also right now.
Oh, and so the eclipse is half over?
I'd say about a third. Doesn't it look like?
Yes. How long will it take?
For about another half hour.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So the Earth comes between the moon and the sun. Mm-hmm. And that puts a shadow on the moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Either that or it's being eaten.
Oh, thank you for telling me. I would have missed this completely.
Yeah. Well, I like celestial events.
Yes. Yes, it is. It never ceases to amaze.
Tom told me about a year ago when the Northern Lights were coming, and that was amazing to see.
Oh, you saw the Northern Lights?
Yeah.
From here?
It's the only time in my life.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
From here?
Yep.
When was that?
That would have been, I think it was the spring of 2003.
Oh, and you saw them well from here?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what did you say? That it's halfway over now?
It's further than it was, I guess.
And now we don't have clouds.
A little bit.
Yeah, I can't see the arc. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? It doesn't look like an eclipse on a
No,
close.
not when you're close up like that, but from far away it does.
Yeah, it really does look like an eclipse. So how much longer do you think it will be?
I don't know. Well, it'll be completely covered, I guess, in 45 minutes or so.
It'll be completely covered?
That's what I understand.
And then how long will it take to come out of it?
I'd say another hour. It's probably been an hour. Well, probably been about 15 minutes so far.
Oh, thank you very much for telling us.
You're very welcome. Jack said something about the moon would change color around 10:20 or something like that.
And color what, orange?
Yeah. I'm not sure why that would be, but his science teacher was telling him about it.
Oh, that's nice.
Sure. All right, well, I'll see you around because I'll be here.
Oh, that's so nice. That was so nice. It's so nice to live in a neighborhood with good people and come and tell you that you're missing the eclipse of the moon. No, this isn't the first time that Charles Dolan, John Tyler, and Cablevision have ruined a day. Well, they don't really ruin it. Well, I was telling you what happened. Okay, McQuaid went to the plaintiff's table. That's pretty dumb, you know, she's the defendant. And so Glendora says, no, that's the plaintiff's table. You go over there. And I pointed to the plaintiff's table, the defendant's table. And Glendora, I'm the plaintiff, Glendora. And Judge Toman, Stephen Toman, said, you have a last name? And Glendora says, no, Glendora is it. Toman, a defendant, and Laura McQuaid said Laura McQuaid, and she spelled it. And she says Sadly, Stevens, Burke, and Burke. And Glendora says, may I have a card? And McQuaid reaches for her purse, and then she reconsiders, and she says, I don't have a card. Glendora, you don't have a card? My name is on the papers. Well, I don't think it is. You don't have a card anywhere? No. Glendora, Your Honor. Toman said something. Glenn said, okay. And Glendora hands McQuaid her copy of Glendora's cross motion. I read that to you last week. That took 3 programs, 3 half-hour programs. Do you remember that? Glendora, is Eacock here? McQuaid, no, she's not. Glendora, is she coming? McQuaid, no, she's not. Toman said something. Motion to dismiss. Glendora says, here's my cross motion. Toman says, is it the original? Glendora says, yes, original to the clerk. And Toman asked McQuaid, how long do you need to answer? And McQuaid says, I would ask that the court dismiss this matter. The defendant has been harassed long enough with this matter. If you are going to reserve, then I will need 2 to 3 weeks to reply. And then Toman looked straight at McQuaid and said, I am going to reserve. I'm going to read this, holding up my cross motion. What she was trying to do was to get a summary judgment. Dismiss it right then and there. Thank you. Judge Toman, in fact, I said thank you right there in court when he did that. I certainly was prepared to jump to my defense on that one. That would have been a horrible denial of due process. So McQuaid and Toman, the judge, discussed how much time McQuaid needs to reply, and she said 2 or 3 weeks. And Glendora says, well, I need a date. And Marlene Bowman, the clerk, looked in the book and said November 15th. And Glendora says, well, what day is that? And Toman says Monday. And then he says, that's my court day. And
Welcome to a chat with Glendora, America's champion of pro se litigants' rights and First Amendment rights. Stay tuned, we will be right back with our show.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Who are we? Acorn! When do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Who are we? Acorn! When do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! The people! United! Whatever needed be! The people! United!
something about fully submitted, and you can reply after that date if you want to. And I said, thank you, I guess. And Toman said, shortly after. And Glendora says, I need a date, sir. And Toman says, November 15th. I said, yes, but you said it was your court night and you wanted it different. And Toman says, no, your cross motion. She has until November 15th to reply to your cross motion. Already submitted. Now, did you put in your opposition and affirmation to this motion? He said to Glendora. And Glendora said, yes. In your cross motion? He asked. Glendora said, yes, it's in there. Okay, your opposition is in, your cross motion is in. All I need is a reply to your cross motion, and that will be here November 15th. And Glendora says, is that postmarked November 15th? Toman, postmarked November 15th. Toman said something else about, it was about 10 words. Glendora says, okay, do I get a sir reply? In other words, they made a motion to dismiss. I made a cross motion to deny the motion to dismiss and to grant all of my relief requested and to sanction them. So they get an answer to my cross motion, a reply to my cross motion. And then usually I wouldn't get a sir reply. But he gave me a sir reply, spelled S-U-R. I said, do I get a SIR reply? And Tolman, the judge, says, if you want to make a SIR reply, you can make it. But immediately after. Glendora says, give me a date. And Tolman says, 1 week after that. 1 week, November 22nd. Postmarked? Tolman, yes. Glenn, okay. Tolman, then it will be fully submitted. If you don't reply by the 22nd, Glendora says, I will. If you don't respond, it will be decided after the 22nd. Glendora, but I wanted a trial. No? I wanted a trial. Maybe I should talk to, well, if the motion is denied, the judge says, the case goes forward. No, the case doesn't go forward. If the motion is granted, oh yeah, the case goes forward if the motion is denied. If the motion is granted, they're asking to dismiss, you can't have a trial because it would be dismissed. And I don't know what relief you are asking for. Glendora, $3,000. $3,000. Judge Tolman said something. It was about 10 words or so. And Glendora says, no other relief, I don't think. Just the $3,000. And everything's quiet. And Glendora says, do you pronounce your name Toman? He says, no, Tolman. It's spelled with a double N. Do you want to, McQuaid says, do you want to hear any argument on our pending motion? Tolman, no. And then he said about 20 words to McQuaid. McQuaid, thank you. Glendora, thank you. Can I tell a joke? And Tolman says, no. And Mary Ramage laughed. And Mary, when she laughs, it makes me laugh. And so I laughed. And Glenn said to myself, or I said to myself, I'll put it in my reply. Well, I didn't. It's a good joke, too. I'll tell it to you. The judge said, why did you park there? And the defendant said, because of the sign. The judge says, what sign? And the defendant says, the sign said fine for parking. Glenn packed up her crisscross, all her notes, and put in the Staples Ream box. And it was scarcely going down. It was really scary going down those steps. There's an old building, and the stairs are, like twice as wide as this room. And carrying this great big box, and these steep stairs, and a whole lot of them. It was so easy to leave your balance because you didn't have anything to hold on to. And it was 5 p.m. and the total time was about 13 minutes. And outside, I asked a 7-foot police officer what his badges of glory were. And did you save somebody's life? I asked him. Yes, a little boy was choking. And over the phone, we told the people how to apply the Heinemann or maneuver. And they did, and he lived. Isn't that a joy? And so then the log goes on. I took Mary Ramage back to Mohegan Lake. Mohegan Lake's nice. They have nice stores. And then I went back to Peekskill. I went back to Tabat's, but her place was closed. She's my new signer in Peekskill. And then I drove up to Fishkill on Route 9, and I visited with my funeral director. My funeral director is one of my best friends. She's 24 years old, and she's adorable, and I tell her undertaker jokes. And then it's sort of a nice ride if you didn't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and if you hadn't already driven 150 miles, but it's sort of a nice ride. You leave Fishkill, you go up Route 9, you go through all this shopping area at Wappingers, and you go to the city of Poughkeepsie and the town of Poughkeepsie. Then you go to Hyde Park, and then you go, it's quite a ways from Hyde Park up to Rhinecliff, and then from Rhinecliff to Red Hook. I always like to stop at the Stewarts in Red Hook, but I missed it. And then Upper Red Hook, and that's the end of Dutchess County. And now you're into, it gets very rural, and now you're into Columbia County. You're all still on Route 9. And before you know it, you're at Route 9H. And once you're at Route 9H, you're about 10 miles from home. And I missed a few turns, so I went on to the next turn. And I got home about 10:15. So the whole thing took, I started getting ready for it around 8 o'clock. So it's 13 or 14 hours, 250 miles. But we're going to stand up for public access, and that's all there is to it. And they're not going to get away from these things. And let me tell you, the next person who says he or she will sign these foolish Cablevision papers and says yes, and then Cablevision calls up and scares them and commits extortion, and the person backs down, that person's going to get sued, and Cablevision's going to get sued with them. This has happened about 28 times. It's not going to happen again without litigation. So that's all of the logs that I included in this 130-page post-hearing memorandum. And I asked them, please don't make me include all the receipts I have. Franklin and I keep the books. We had kept books 48 years, and I still keep them, whereby you have a daily page, and you put in everything that comes in and everything that comes out, the date that it happened, and how much it was and what it was. And then at the end of the week, of course you add that up at the end of the week, and then you take each item and put it over in the month column, if it's office supplies, if it's gasoline, all the business stuff, and then all the personal stuff. And then at the end of the month, you add up the columns. Then you take those amounts and then you put them on the year sheet for the month of October, for instance. And we've done that carefully. And we have a receipt for everything. And there's so many receipts. So I asked them, please don't make me produce those receipts. It would take a day to get them all together. And I swore under penalty of perjury. Statements that Glendora was going to make in court, but there's no trial. Did ECOC talk it over with Glendora first? No. Couldn't she have called Glendora's other signers for years and seen if they ever had any trouble or any hurt? She turned her back on free speech, on America, and on democracy. She never saw the show and therefore had no complaint against it. Glendora has audio tapes and videotapes to show the court. Will that ever happen? One videotape is Glendora's appearance as a guest on the David Letterman show. This would tell you why Glendora charges $300 an hour as a TV professional, along with all of the experience in litigation in courts and with all of the experience of doing public access programs. Over 50 years in broadcast TV and over 30 years in cable TV. Does this court have any video playback? This case is of national interest. The government has an interest in this case, public access, as demonstrated in Title 47 U.S. Code, Section 521 et sequitur, which is a law that regulates public access. Callaghy has no meritorious defense. Not one thing he proffers absolves ECOC from breaching contract with Glendora. The long list, incomplete, of Glendora's brave fights for rights has no relevance, nor does the Cablevision policies, rules, procedures. They are not germane. They are not the issue. And it occurred to me in one of those electromagnetic waves that goes through your head at 186,000 miles per second, it occurred to me that it's about time that I proved in court once for all that these Cablevision policies, rules, and procedures have no statutory authority. They have no standing. And Cablevision has no power to enforce anything as ridiculous and as unconscionable as they are. Callagy begs to prejudice and bias the court, and this is his only hope. Judge Tolman, will you please sign Glendora's papers on February 11th, 05 to keep Glendora's show on Cablevision in Peekskill. ECOC does not present any papers from Cablevision. The only ECOC Cablevision came from Cecilia. What did Cecilia say to ECOC? What did Savarino say to ECOC? The person accompanying Glendora on October the 18th, Monday, at 4:30 p.m. in court was and still is Mary Ramage, Mohegan Lake. Mary is Glendora's signer for Cablevision Yorktown, and has been for years. Glendora wanted the court to ask Mary if she enjoyed being a signer, if it had been fun, and if anything bad had ever happened. And will she do it again? Mary and Glendora have had good times together since we met a long time ago, and we met over her signing the Cablevision Yorktown papers for me. The same applies to Zeke Hunter, who signed years ago for the Cross River system, where Glendora is on 2 hours every Friday night. George Paris, who signed years ago for New Rochelle Pelham, and James Cahagan, who signed years ago for the Rockland system. Andy Poland, who signed years ago for the Brookhaven Long Island system. Taylor Holbrook, who signed years ago for Wappingers. Bob Angelo, who signed years ago for Ossining. Kelly Burness, who signed years ago for the Nassau County system. That's a big system, 430,000 subscribers. Lori Calgano, who signed years ago for the Hauppauge system. That's another 60,000 subscribers. To Betty Ann Smith, who signed years ago for the Bergen County, New Jersey system, ad infinitum. All ECOC had to do was to talk to these signers instead of turning her back on Glendora. Free speech in the USA. McQuaid Callagy whined that ECOC has been harassed by Glendora. Well, I think it's pretty obvious to you folks who's been harassed. But of acuity, as Glendora has presented to the court, can effortlessly see, it is Glendora who has been harassed by Cecilia, Savarino, Dolan, Todd, Harrison, Cablevision, Gallagher, McQuaid, Budil et al. And Glendora found out tonight that her Harrison Town Court judge is out of the hospital and is in and out of his office, so he's a little better. Glendora wanted to send him a get well card, but she couldn't do it without sending a copy to the other side. And I refused to do that. That's reductio ad absurdum. I have Cablevision at the moment in the Rye City Court. Well, actually, that's gone to the appellate court. In the Harrison Town Court, in the Phillipstown Town Court, and in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, Richmond, Virginia. I sued them in the United States District Court in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, here is a zinger. Motion pursuant to a CPLR analog to Rule 55 Federal Rules of Civil Procedure for default judgment. ECOC did not appear. McQuaid, Callagy, and Sadley failed to produce Carmody weight proof of authorization to represent ECOC. Indeed, McQuaid didn't even have a business card. Ergo, Glendora is entitled to a $3,000 judgment by default, costs, and disbursements, and all further relief just and proper. This was dated October the 26th. Yours in truth and in Armo Patriae, Glendora. A chat with Glendora's on 45 TV stations. There'll be 450 municipalities, including Washington, D.C. And it is on the internet. There are 100 with 10 more coming, 16 more coming. Half-hour programs of A Chat with Glendora on the internet, www.achatwithglendora.com. You can watch them on your computer screen just the way you watch them on a TV screen. Wherefore, therefore, and ergo, Glendora is entitled to $3,000, the costs and disbursements, and any further relief just and proper. Dated October 26, 2004, Anno Domini. And Glendora's service list is the original to the clerk, to Callaghy, to ECOC, to Charles F. Dolan and Cablevision, to John Tata and Cablevision, to George McDermott, All-American Hero in Washington, D.C., to the Center for Judicial Accountability, Incorporated, More Heroes Fighting Corruption, and to the Glendora TV audience, you, all important, and the Glendora Internet audience. And this paper costs $65.82 to print and post. Why not? It's 130 pages, and it took 22 hours. But I think that has to be augmented to like 28 hours. Okay, that's it. Welcome to Glendora, cheerful look at life. 1 minute of good cheer, goodwill, and good humor. And the stock investor says that he buys Sweet Chariot stocks. As soon as he buys them, they swing low. And the stockbroker says, you'd be surprised how many people come up to my office in a Lincoln and with a chauffeur to get advice from a guy who comes to work on the bus. Edgar said that he could shoot himself because 20 years ago he had an opportunity to invest in Federal Express, but he didn't because he thought it was a fly-by-night company. And one stockbroker at Christmas time hangs mistletoe over his door so that his clients can kiss their money goodbye. The Wall Street tycoon drove up to his house after work at night, and his neighbor says, "Hi, John, what's the latest dope on Wall Street?" John says, "My son Irving, he just started working for the company." The little girl says, "Mother, is it true? The Bible says we come from dust and return to dust." And mother says, "Yes." And the little girl says, "I looked under the couch and somebody's coming or going." And summertime is when Americans put aside the Rubik Cube and face the all-time challenge, how to refold a roadmap. And Bob says it's getting harder and harder for him to support this government in the custom to which, or in the style to which it has become accustomed. And somebody asked a famous author, what is your greatest work of fiction? And the famous author said, my income tax form. And the boss says that Peter, at least he's honest. When he made out his 1040 form, at least he said half of his income was unearned. Now, Harry is talking to God, and he says, God, how much is $1 million to you? And God said $10. And Harry says, well, God, how long is 1,000,000 years to you? And God said, a second. And Harry says, God, could you loan me $10? And God says, certainly. Just a second. This is Glendora, a cheerful look at life. A minute of good cheer, goodwill, and good humor brought to you by... Would you like to go out now and see the eclipse? The Earth comes between the moon and the sun. isn't that interesting? The Earth between the moon and the sun. Oh, that's so interesting. It's interesting because it happened when the moon is full, right? The harvest moon? Or almost full or something. Oh, that's so interesting. I'm sorry I can't hold it steadily. I need a tripod, but I'm not coming out here with a tripod at this hour of the day. It's the Earth's shadow on the moon. The terrestrial ball on the lunar ball. Oh, this is wonderful. It's clear, folks. It's clear. We can see the morning sunrise. For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies. Wasn't that spectacular last night? You could actually see the earth outlined on the moon. You could see the shadow that the earth was making on the moon. And we were standing on the earth looking at the shadow we were making on the moon. The animals do not like Triscuits. They do not like expensive Triscuits. Look at the heavy frost that we had last night. It's pretty cold. You know what I'd love to do today, folks? I'd just love to sit down at the new titler and put the messages on the TV screen, the words on the TV screen. But I gotta do legal papers. I gotta fight public access. And the people who abscond with it, John Totter, Charles Dolan, Cablevision Systems Corporation, Mac Budil, Thomas Garga, Miles Rich, Christine Savarino, Cecilia Mastrovilli. I have to fight for public access. And who else fights for public access harder? Well, I think maybe Zabby. Zabby was going off to Huntington because they're going to do the same thing in Huntington, that the crooked thing they did in Southampton, sell public access down the drain. Cablevision again, oh, I'd be so glad when that company is a nothing and is swallowed up and digested. So that's what I got to do. Glendora versus Charles F. Dolan and Cablevision Systems Corporation in the appellate term, the appeals court, Supreme Court, State of New York, 9th and 10th Judicial Districts, 2nd Department.